It always feels like July arrives with a certain warmth, a kind of softness cloaked in sunlit days and deep blue skies. And yet, there's something about the last week of July that carries a weight. It's as though the month begins by promising you eternity, lush days, golden light, a sense of foreverness, and then suddenly, without warning, it reminds you of your mortality. This isn't about superstition. It's about awareness, about being still enough to listen. Because July, in its final days, whispers a truth we often try to drown out with noise. Life is passing, time is disappearing, and you are changing, even if you're not conscious of it. There's something uniquely unsettling about endings that don't announce themselves. July doesn't wave goodbye. It just starts to dim the light just slightly. The sun sets a little earlier. The air feels subtly heavier. The laughter around you grows quieter, like a clock ticking in the distance. You don't notice it until it's almost gone, and that is how death enters, too. Not with screaming, but with silence. Not with rage, but with resignation. That's the secret July tries to tell us every year, but we're often too distracted to hear it. In the final week of July, something ancient stirs. A cycle older than calendars, older than history. For those who are paying attention, it brings with it a reckoning. The illusion of permanence starts to fall apart. We look in the mirror and notice lines that weren't there. We walk through rooms we've known forever, and they suddenly feel unfamiliar. We remember people we haven't thought of in years, and we feel their absence like a weight on our chest. Some part of us mourns, not necessarily a person or a moment, but a version of ourselves that didn't survive the year. There are years you survive, then there are years that survive you. That is what the end of July begins to reveal. If January is about new beginnings, July is about secret endings, and by the time we reach the last 7 days, we are being asked to confront something more than time. We are being asked to confront truth. The truth that you can pretend all you want, but nothing stays, not people, not youth, not certainty, not even summer. It's in this moment of subtle collapse that the soul is either awakened or destroyed. You either rise to meet the shift or you crumble under its quiet pressure. That's the dark secret of July's end. It doesn't take your life, but it demands that you wake up to it. If you're sensitive, you'll feel the grief coming in waves. Not just personal grief, but a collective one, as if the whole world is remembering what it lost, as if the entire universe is leaning in and whispering, "Pay attention. This moment is not coming back." There's a peculiar kind of death that doesn't happen in the body, but in the mind. It's the death of an illusion. Maybe you thought you had more time. Maybe you thought things would stay the way they were. Maybe you thought you were invincible, but then July ends and something in you knows the world is not what it once was. You are not what you once were, and you can't go back. This is not a tragedy, it's a threshold. Painful, yes, but it's an invitation, not a punishment. The death of certainty creates space for clarity. The death of comfort makes room for courage. The death of who you were allows who you could be to finally step forward. But you cannot do this if you're clinging to old echoes. You cannot rise if you're anchored to a version of yourself that already died. This is the moment where you decide, not in a grand, theatrical way, but in the quiet space between your thoughts. Do you keep repeating the past, or do you choose to evolve? Do you keep running from your wounds, or do you finally face them? Do you numb, distract, and deny? Or do you open your eyes and allow the pain to sharpen you, to forge you into someone deeper, someone real? People talk about transformation like it's poetic, like it's soft and beautiful. But real transformation often comes wrapped in silence and darkness. It doesn't feel like becoming. It feels like ending, like loss, like disorientation. But those who stay awake through it, those who refuse to sleepwalk back into comfort, they are the ones who emerge with a new vision, a new voice, a new self. July's final week doesn't want you to fear death. It wants you to understand it, not just as an event, but as a process, as a necessity. Something must end for something else to begin. You cannot take your past into your future. You cannot carry your denial into your destiny. So the month, this season, this cycle, it gently pries it out of your hands. You'll resist, you'll grieve, but you'll grow. This is why so many people feel inexplicably emotional at the end of July. They say it's the weather, the heat, the stress. But underneath all that is an unspoken awareness. Something is ending. Something is shifting. Some chapter is being closed. You may not know what it is, but you feel it like a storm behind your eyes. And that's what makes this moment sacred, because you can't lie to yourself anymore. Not easily, not now. The time for pretending is over. The time for avoiding is over. You know what you need to let go of. You know what's been decaying inside you. A habit, a relationship, a fear, a story. And you know that if you don't release it, you will not make it into August as the person you're meant to become. Some people will try to escape this truth. They'll bury themselves in work, in distractions, in social media, in noise. But that's just postponing the pain. The wiser path, the braver path is to sit in it, to feel the discomfort, to ask yourself the hard questions, to cry if you need to break if you must, because real healing often begins in the breaking. What dies at the end of July is not your life. It's your illusion of permanence, and once that illusion is gone, what you're left with is something precious, something true. Time, presence, choice, the sacred awareness that this moment is all you have, that this life is not a rehearsal, that you don't get to do this twice. What would you do differently if you understood that deeply? Would you forgive someone? Would you apologize? Would you take the risk? Would you stop waiting? That's the power of this week. It forces you to confront what really matters, and if you're brave enough, it sets you free. So let July's end break you if it must. Let it peel away what's false. Let it silence what's hollow. Let it empty you of noise, and then when you're ready, let it rebuild you with fire, because the end of something is also the beginning of something greater. The death of illusion is the birth of power, and the loss you fear is often the doorway to the life you've been craving. Don't waste this week, don't numb it, don't ignore the signs, pay attention to your dreams. Pay attention to your patterns. Pay attention to the voice inside you that's been whispering all along. It knows the truth. It's just been waiting for you to get quiet enough to hear it. This final week is not just 7 days on a calendar. It is a mirror showing you what you've become and what you still could be. It is a teacher offering you one final lesson before the new season begins. And it is a gatekeeper asking you if you're ready to walk through the fire, to leave behind what no longer serves you, and to step into the unknown with your eyes wide open. Death in July is not an ending. It is an awakening. The question is, will you wake up? Because if you do, if you dare to stand still long enough to feel the weight of this moment, you'll realize the secret wasn't dark at all. It was just hidden. Hidden beneath distractions, buried beneath routine. But now you see it clearly. Life was never about what you could hold on to. It was always about what you could become. And now the choice is yours. It begins like every other summer month. Sun-drenched mornings, still evenings, the heat thick and familiar. July fools you with its abundance. The days feel endless. The light stretches long into the night. The world seems suspended in a golden pause. There's laughter, travel, noise, movement. It's easy to be swept up in the illusion that things will always stay this way, that you'll always feel this alive, this certain, this distracted. But what no one tells you, and what very few notice, is that July is a trickster. It is a month of masks, and in its final week the mask slips. Something shifts almost imperceptibly, and you feel it, not in the air or in the sky, but in your bones. You start to remember things you thought you buried. You start to feel weight you didn't realize you were carrying. Old wounds pulse again, regrets resurface. Your sleep grows restless. Your heart becomes louder. The light no longer feels warm, it feels like a spotlight. There is a silence underneath the noise of July's final week. You may hear it as unease or confusion or deep nostalgia that stings for no reason. It's not sadness, it's not even pain, it's recognition, a knowing that something is over, maybe not visibly, maybe not yet, but internally something has died, a phase, a version of you, an attachment, a belief you carried for far too long. The secret that the last week of July holds is not just about endings. It's about what you're refusing to let go of and the cost of that refusal. We don't like to talk about these thresholds. We are taught to celebrate beginnings and hide our goodbyes in silence. But if you pay close attention, you'll see that nature itself mourns quietly in this last stretch of the month. The birds are quieter. The sunsets are deeper, as if stained with something unspoken. The days grow slightly shorter, and the light loses its warmth just a little. It's as if the world is holding its breath, and inside that pause is the question you've been avoiding. Are you really living, or are you just continuing? This week forces you to confront the version of yourself that won't survive the next season, not because of tragedy, but because of truth. Because the person you became to survive the past year is not who you need to be going forward. And holding on to them, protecting their story, their fears, their wounds, will only delay your evolution, but letting them go, that feels like death, not metaphorically, genuinely, because who are you without your suffering? Who are you without your narratives of injustice or heartbreak or being misunderstood? That is what the end of July exposes. The painful paradox that becoming new requires mourning the old, and most people don't want to grieve. Not consciously, so instead they distract. They fill their lives with noise, they chase temporary highs, they stay busy so they don't have to feel the ground shifting beneath them, but avoidance doesn't save you. It only prolongs the ache, because the more you resist the end, the more violently life will pull it from you. Somewhere deep inside, you know this. You feel the weight of unspoken change, a quiet death of identity, a dissolving of roles you've outgrown, friendships that no longer hold soul, dreams that don't fit anymore. The ending doesn't come with a final word. It comes with fatigue, with silence, with a soft but persistent ache that says, this is no longer for you. And the longer you pretend you can carry it, the heavier it becomes. The death of July is sacred because it doesn't ask for your perfection. It asks for your honesty. It asks whether you can sit still enough to hear what your life is trying to say. Whether you can be courageous enough to end what needs ending, even without applause or validation. Whether you can surrender, not to defeat, but to alignment, and alignment often requires loss, not because you're failing, but because you're maturing. There's a version of you that is still trying to keep everything together, still trying to be understood, to be enough, to be seen a certain way, but July, especially its closing days, doesn't care about your performance. It cares about your truth, and truth isn't always polished. Sometimes it's raw and trembling. Sometimes it's the realization that the people you've been trying to please don't even know the real you. That the life you've built is stable but not soulful. That your power has been dimmed by your need to be accepted. This kind of realization breaks something open inside you. A fracture in your false identity. A crack in the illusion, and through that crack, light begins to seep in. But that light doesn't feel warm at first, it burns, because it exposes the parts of you that are still pretending, still hiding, still living on autopilot, still begging for love in places that cannot give it, still negotiating your worth through roles you were never meant to play. So yes, the last week of July is heavy. It's unsettling. It may even feel like depression or existential fatigue, but underneath that fog is a clearing, a space where something truer wants to emerge. You just have to be willing to sit in the in-between, the liminal. The space where you're no longer who you were, but not yet who you're becoming. That's where transformation lives, not in clarity, but in surrender. Most people want to skip this part. They want the rebirth without the death. They want change without discomfort, but that's not how real growth works. Real growth requires shedding, and shedding hurts. It feels like chaos. It feels like darkness, but it's sacred, it's intelligent. And it's necessary. If you felt lost lately, if you felt like something is dying in you, something you can't quite name, know that it's not your failure, it's your awakening. You're being pulled into alignment. And alignment is ruthless. It will strip away everything that isn't real, every coping mechanism, every hollow commitment, every identity rooted in fear. That stripping away, that's the death of July. That's the secret no one talks about, and here's the deeper truth. Death is not just an end, it's a clearing, a sacred vacuum, a space being made for something more honest to take root. But you have to trust it. You have to let the season change. You have to stop trying to revive what's already gone. You have to stop rehearsing old pain and calling it identity. You have to stop decorating your wounds and calling them home. You are not meant to be who you were forever. You are meant to outgrow your stories. You are meant to evolve, and that evolution demands courage, the courage to be misunderstood, the courage to disappoint others in order to be faithful to your own soul, the courage to walk away even when your hands are trembling, the courage to choose integrity over familiarity. This last week is your invitation to rise, not with force but with honesty. Ask yourself, what have I been holding on to that no longer serves me? What version of myself do I need to let die so something real can be born? What truth have I been avoiding, and what would happen if I finally faced it? You may not have all the answers. You don't need to. You just need to say yes to the process, yes to the unraveling, yes to the becoming, yes to the sacred unknown, because beyond this death is not emptiness. It's clarity, it's freedom, it's peace. Not the peace that comes from controlling everything, but the peace that comes from no longer needing to. So let it go, let the mask fall, let the grief come, let the silence speak, let the ending teach you what the beginning never could. And then, when you're ready, really ready, step forward into the August of your life, not as who you were pretending to be, but as who you truly are. The secret of July is not in its heat, nor its sun, nor its noise. It's in its ending, in the quiet collapse that makes space for something sacred. That something is you.